Hi, it's Autumn. I know I did one of these a couple of days ago, but I just had locals for the first time, so I figured it was worth documenting my experience with that. I played Sword Soul Tenyi, and basically that was just because I had heard it was a good thing to start with. I've kind of been following the meta on and off since 2017. I knew the basic rules as a kid, but that's different. I got into it again through DZ's videos. I think that's a really good starting point for like understanding the fundamentals of the game and like why certain cards are good and certain ones aren't. Teaching about card advantage and stuff like that. And I've been interested in it for a few years, but I never actually tried going to a locals properly. Few years ago, in like 2018 or so, I tried seeing if there were some in my like local area, and I think there were supposed to be two. I went to one of them, it was like some guy's house, and I'm like, never mind, this doesn't seem right. And the other one was at an actual store, and I don't really remember why I didn't go in. I don't know, maybe I just chickened out. There was also the factor of like I needed a deck, and I didn't really have money at the time, but now I do. Now I can waste all the money I want on a children's card game. So yeah, and basically it all kicked off with the Pokemon Progression playoffs. Like, as soon as we started doing that with Joel, I got into like a card game fever. And even when we weren't working on that, I was building my deck, and when I was done with that, I wanted to do something else. It's like I worked on my own card game, Virtuoso, for a bit. Not going to talk about that in detail here, but I got back into working on that recently. And I also got into playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For real. And so, I played some matches against Joel on like Dueling Book. I got into Master Duel a little bit, and I scoped out the locals near where I live now. And it seemed like a pretty nice place. Most people there seem pretty nice, no real issues. And I watched a couple of them, a couple of the locals last week and the 2 weeks before that. And now that most of my cards are here, I figured let me actually give it a shot. I still am waiting on, I think, 4 cards, which kind of sucks, but what are you going to do? I wanted to play, and I didn't want to have to put it off any longer. And people were interested in getting to know me and playing against me, so I'm going to go over like what some of the cards do. Not for people that actually play Yu-Gi-Oh! Even though it seems like most people that watch the video were existing Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, but I figured I'd just kind of go over the strategy. Some people might not be as familiar with it, or if anybody here is using this as background noise, I figure it might be interesting to see kind of what the deal is with it. But this deck has very simple lines, and it's kind of obvious what you want to do with your hand most of the time, so that's why it was a good starter. I have played other decks since then. I've tried Goatee on Dueling Book, and it's like okay. I didn't like it as much. I think maybe with the new support I'll try it again. And I also tried Makonko, and I really, really like Makonko, and I've been playing it in Master Duel, and I'm probably going to try to build Makonko. There's like a really funny thing you can do with Acid Golem, and a certain other card that I'll be talking about later. But let me talk a little bit about this, and then after that I'll open my packs, and we can talk about kind of what went down at locals and what my experience with that was. Spoilers, I didn't do too well. I only got the participation pack, but my first time, can't expect too much, and definitely learn some lessons that I can try to apply next time to get a better result. So with that, let's have a look at the deck I piloted. Okay, so if you're familiar with what this mat is, you might be wondering why I have this, because this is a Euros mat. I actually bought this today off of somebody at my locals, because last week when I was here, they were trying to flip some of their mats, because they have a bunch of them, and this was one of them, and I'm like, hey, I really like Makonko, how much is it? And this one is a little bit more expensive, and it's because it's not like one that you could just get anywhere. This is like an event mat. But I really, really like Makonko, and I figured, if I'm going to get a mat, it may as well be one that I like. I'm going to be using this, presumably for a long time. I think on eBay, it usually goes for like 60 to 70. I paid 50 for it. So as far as I'm concerned, it was a good deal. And I'm happy to have it. So feel free to make fun of me for not just going with, the basic whatever. But if I wanted to do that, I have a bunch of shitty paper mats. But yeah, let's actually go over my deck here. So like I said, I'm missing some important stuff in this, which is a real shame, and definitely, could have been a factor in in things, but probably not by that much. So it's kind of in a weird order here. I probably should have sort of reordered it before recording, but we've got 3 of this card called Soul Soul of Moye. There's a sort of infamous copy pasta regarding her. And let's see, where's the third one? It's supposed to be in here. Oh, shoot, dunno. That's strange. Anyway, oh, there you go. This is the main starter of the deck. This deck is based around Synchro Summoning, which is one of the extra deck mechanics. And what Moya can do is, again, I assume most people who are like Yu-Gi-Oh players already kind of know what this deck does, but it's fun to talk about this stuff, so I'll explain it. Moye, when normal or special, allows you to make a token, and we'll just use this purple card as an example of the token. Allows you to special summon a Sword Soul token, which is a tuner, and tuners are required for synchros. It's level 4, so you can sync these together to make a level 8. And usually what you'll do, a very, very common first turn play, is Moye, token, sync. And so you sync them off, this goes to grave. It's my other Moyes, I'll just put that off to the side, I guess. And you'll usually go into this card, Sword Soul Grandmaster, Chi-Shao. What Chi-Shao lets you do is search for another Sword Soul. But also, funnily enough, when Moye is used as synchro material, you can draw a card. And so, because these are simultaneous effects, this one happens when it's synchro summon, this one's when it's used as synchro material, the synchro summon obviously facilitating both these effects. A phenomenon called simultaneous effects go on chain happen. So basically, I get to pick the order these happen. So I'll go chain link 1, chain link 2. And what this means is that now when I pass to my, when I give my opponent an opportunity to respond, they actually can't respond to the Chi-Shao because it's being chain blocked. Well, they can like imperm it, but they can't directly respond to that effect. For example, if they have Ash, they can't Ash that. They can Ash the draw, but they can't Ash the search. So, you know, at that point you would draw, and if you get what you're looking for, you might change your game plan. But generally what you're looking for at this point is the next card I'm going to talk about. Sword Soul Strategist Long Yun. In the lore, this guy's a bastard, but outside of that, it's one of the better cards in the deck. Where is the third one? I'm having such trouble. Anyway, this guy, you add it to your hand, and it has a similar effect to create token. All 3 of the main Sword Soul main deck monsters do this in different ways. Oh, I should mention, to actually use Moye's effect, you have to reveal a worm or a Sword Soul card in your hand, and this is relevant for something I'm going to talk about later. Essentially, most of the time it's not a problem, because you're probably going to have a Sword Soul or a worm in hand. But you won't always, and you can't forget to do it, because otherwise you can't do the effect. So if Moye is the only thing in your hand, it's not really of much use to you. Or sorry, if it's the only like Sword Soul or worm in your hand, it's not of much use to you. And you do have to be careful about that and not forget it, but anyway. So you'll bring out Long Yun, and Long Yun has an effect that lets you discard a different Sword Soul card, so let's, as an example, just use this other Long Yun, or it could be a Moye, you know, whatever you want, a second Moye. You bring it out, you get the token. This thing's level 6, so when you go with this, you can make it level 10. And there's a few different level 10s. There's, for example, Cheng Ying, there's Qixing Long Yun, and then the card that you're most often going to go into is Baron de Fleur. Mostly because this is, well, just a really strong and powerful boss monster. These are still good, but they're better sort of later in the game or more situationally. As with Moye, Long Yun also has an effect when it is used as synchro material. In this case, it burns your opponent for 1200, which is a nice effect for time. If you're in game 3 and you only have like 5 minutes left, it's nice to burn your opponent, and then when you have this board, if they can't out it and deal more damage to you, when time is called, they have the lower life points and you're going to win. So that's a nice thing. It did come up, I believe, once. Anyway, these, there's not much to say about. Cheng Ying essentially becomes more powerful and debuffs your opponent's monsters if there's banished stuff, and I haven't talked about banishment in this deck yet, but there are a few different ways to banish stuff that work pretty well. And then Qixing Long Yun is not as strong as this in terms of like attacking over stuff, but it's still decently strong. And if you're able to get this plus then something else, that can be pretty nice, because if you synchro another worm while you have this, you can draw a card. It didn't come up for me. I actually never summoned this thing. But yeah, that's the thing. Let's see. And you can also, I believe, yeah, if your opponent special summons something, except during damage type, you can banish it and then burn them with Qixing. It's not as good as some of the other cards, but you know, situationally you might want to do it. Let's see. Yeah, and then Cheng Ying resists destruction by banishing stuff, essentially. So, yeah, and I didn't talk about Baron yet. Baron, once per turn, you can target and destroy something, just any face-up. Is it any face-up card or is it any card? Oh, it's just any card. And then it also has a once per... It's not really a once per duel, it's like a soft once per duel, once per existence thing. If you special summon a Baron, then once, while this thing is out, you can, as a quick effect, negate basically anything. And this is often, like, if you have a Long Yun if you have a Long Yun in hand from the start, it's a good idea to make Baron first before you do Chi-Shao, if you can. because then if they try to use the effect of something called Nibiru the Primal Being, then you can negate it with Baron, and otherwise this deck kind of loses hard to nib, and it's always sucks when that happens. I did have to deal with several nibs today. But yeah, so finally in terms of the main deck, let's see, Sword Souls. There is, I think it's near the back. Here you go. Sword Soul of Tyre. People usually run 2 of this one. This is like the next one you search if you already have what you're looking for. This one doesn't have a special thing you do from the hand, like Longyun. You just normal it. And then you don't have to do this immediately, which is nice because the problem with Moye is if it gets negated, the Moye is basically just sitting there on the field doing nothing. If the Tyre gets negated, you can theoretically do it next turn if it sticks around. It's just a little more versatile, but you have to do it sort of later in the game because it brings out a token by banishing something from your grave, specifically a Sword Soul or a Worm. Yeah, Sword Soul card or a Worm. And that lets you make a token, and then you can go into one of the other 8. And I guess I'll go over the 8 pool here. There's a second copy of Chixiao, because it's not uncommon for your Chixiao to get outed and then for you to want to make another one. Especially, yeah, so if your entire board gets wiped, but you are able to get like a Tyre and then banish something, you'll probably actually want to go into the second Chixiao. Because the quick effect negate that Chixiao has, which I don't think I mentioned, is actually really good. Let's see, it only works on monster effects though, so that's the downside. It's really easy for me to forget that Chixiao has that effect. I kept using other things instead of it, and it cost me a game in one case, which is very unfortunate. It cost me a match, I should say. In terms of other 8s, there's this, Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. This one's just kind of a big beefy thing. It can it does something with the... Yeah, if you attack something and it's destroyed, then you can absorb half their attack and oh no, it's equal to their original attack. Yeah, and then it can attack again. So this thing is for it helps you OTK if they have other monsters. If what you want to do is just run them over. Usually with Sword Soul you want to be simplifying the game state and then attacking directly if you can, or something like that. I never found a situation where there's there's 2 things I need to run over. Let me do it with Draco Berserker. I did summon this guy once, but it didn't really help me. In fact, it kind of hindered me, because there was an effect I wanted to... there was an effect that happened that I really should have just negated with Chixiao. I had Chixiao and Draco Berserker. And for some reason, I was just hyper-fixated on this thing. And I'm like, yeah, I'll banish. It doesn't actually negate. I knew it didn't negate, but I'm like, yeah, I'll get rid of your thing. Didn't even think to negate. Anyway, very dumb. Cost me the game. And the match. The other 8s, there's 2 of this. Baxia, Brightness of the Yang Zheng. This is usually better to get off of Tyre than it is from Moye. And that's because it gets better the higher the number of different attributes of things that you use to synchro it. So the Sword Soul token that all of these make, that all of them are water. And Moye is also water. So if you make it with Moye, then you've only used 1 attribute. If you do it with Tyre, you've used 2, because Tyre is a wind. And so Baxia, the deal with this thing is, based on the number of different original attributes of the worms you used, you can shuffle, you can target cards on the field and then shuffle them into the deck, which is called spinning. And then what's also really nice about Baxia, which unfortunately I'm not able to make use of, because I'm still waiting on the card that does this, but there's a card I'll get into that works with this, but basically you can target a card you control and a level 4 monster or lower monster in the grave, destroy the card that you control, and then special summon the thing from the grave. And so there's a specific thing you usually want to do with that. But we'll get into that. In terms of other cards, there's Sword Soul Emergence, which is a searcher for any Sword Soul monster. I only have 2 because I'm waiting on the 3rd one, unfortunately. Downs my consistency a little bit, but it is what it is. And the last actual Sword Soul card is this, Sword Soul Blackout. If you have nothing else to search, this is a good thing to do. I only run 1 of it, most people do. You set it, and then it's just a nice little thing to deal with the opponent on their turn. You set it, and then basically if they're trying to destroy some shit, you can destroy your own, you can chain this, destroy whatever they're trying to destroy first, and then also destroy 2 cards your opponent controls. Any cards, it doesn't have to be monsters or face up or anything like that. Secondarily, this card would be, okay already. If this card is banished, which you can do through the effect of Tyre, for example, or something else, there's a few other ways to do it. yeah, Chi Xiao is the main thing, because to use its negate, you have to banish something. So it's really good to chain blackout to this and go off from there, depending on what you have again. But yeah, if it's banished, you essentially get to make a Sword Soul token. So this is the other way that you can do that. If, for example, you brought out a Moye, and then that didn't work, but you were able to somehow get something else out, then, you know, you can blackout, get the token, and then make use of them. So, now into the Tenyi part of Sword Soul Tenyi. Let's see. Oh, actually, one more thing I should say. There's this card, Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous. This is essentially a Sword Soul card, even though it doesn't have it in the name. It's to do with, like, the whole lore of the Fallen of Albaz and Aluba, the Jester of Despia. Essentially, what this does is, if your opponent controls more monsters, you can special it, but otherwise you can normal it. Either way, it's fine. And then, as an effect, you can tribute this, and then special any Sword Soul from deck. So, if you didn't open any of the Sword Souls that you wanted, but you did open this is another way of getting into that, you know. So, essentially, between 3 Emergence, 3 Moye, 3 Ecclesia, that's, you know, 9 different main starting cards. And you can also use Longyun as a okay starter too. Sort of. You want to be generally, you know, if you have Moye, you'll usually go Moye first. I don't know. It depends. If you're expecting Nib, then you might get Longyun first, but still kind of learning the deck. So, onto the Tenyi part, like I said. This is a card called Tenyi Spirit Ashuna. I have 3 of these, I think. And this is nice to see in your opening hand because if you control no effect monsters, you can special it, which obviously doesn't use your normal. And then usually, basically, this and the other Tenyis that I run, they all have effects that can activate from either the hand or the grave. So what's really nice is you can special this, immediately link it off to create a card called Monk of the Tenyi, which is a link monster with no effect, so it doesn't count as an effect monster. So then if I had another of Tenyi, I could do that as well again, and yeah, get these engraved. And then even if it's engraved, it can still use its effect. This thing's effect lets you banish it. Again, another way of banishing stuff for example, Cheng-Ying's effect. You can banish it to special a Tenyi Spirit with a different name from your hand or deck. So this is best when you've opened this plus one other Tenyi Spirit. But essentially, between the various ones, you can use it as sort of a backup strategy for making some of your sinks. So that's all facilitated by this one, Tenyi Spirit Adhara. It's a level 1 and it's a tuner. Ashuna is 7, so if you put these together, that's 8. You can make a Chi Xiao and you can, you know, continue from there. What you can also do, normally people only run 2, I'm running 3 just to fill a spot because I'm missing some cards. You can also get Vishuddha, which is, this one's nice. It's a 7 like Ashuna, so if you sync these 2, you can do stuff. And of course, if you sync them, they go to grave and you can still use their effects. Adhara's special effect is that you can banish it to add is it a banished worm? Yeah, you can add a banished worm back to your hand, so you can kind of repeat this. These effects are once per turn, but you know, you could follow it up on the next turn, so you could, you know, Ashuna, grave, bam, bring out like Vishuddha from hand, let's say, use its effect to get Adhara, sync these off, now you got these in grave, Adhara banish to add Ashuna back to hand, and you can Ashuna again next turn for like another Adhara, for example. Vishuddha's effect is if you... also, you have to control an effect monster, non-effect monster for these to work. With a face-up non-effect monster, I should say. So that's usually why you'll keep the Monk of the Tenyi around. It just sits there kind of being a non-effect monster, which is kind of funny. Though, what's nice is you can also do it when the Sword Soul token exists, because that's also a non-effect monster. Anyway, Vishuddha, if you banish it, then you can bounce, I think, a card? Yeah, just any card your opponent controls, return it to the hand. This is most nice with, like, extra deck monsters that they've put a lot of resources into bringing out. You can just boing, there you go. If you put something else back in their hand, you know, just like a normal summon or a spell or something, they'll probably just set it again. But this is very nice for outing some extra deck stuff. And then there actually is one more Tenyi that I run. Not everybody does this. Honestly, I haven't found it that useful. I might cut it in future builds. Shthana. This is only level 4, so it's not... you can normal it, which is, you know, if you absolutely need to. You could do this with like a spare token. If you somehow have that going on, you could make something. Otherwise, like, this +1 doesn't. I don't have any 5s in here. Some people run there's a level 5 synchro from I think is it Yang Zing or is it Tenyu? I can't remember. But anyway, so you could do that. This thing, if you control a non-effect monster, then from hand and grave you can banish it, and what does it do? Oh, no, that's right. If a face-up non-effect monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this, then target a destroyed monster and special summon it, then destroy a monster your opponent controls. It's kind of convoluted. I figure you'd probably chain this with a certain card called, let's see, Heavenly Dragon Circle, because this lets you tribute a worm. Wait a minute. That's tributing, that's not even destruction. Never mind, you can't do that. Damn, that's annoying. Yeah, honestly, I don't really see the appeal of Shthana. Heavenly Dragon Circle is a thing that lets you, like I said, tribute a worm, and then search for a worm. If you do it with a non-effect, you can special it, but negate its effects. Usually you don't want to do that unless you're bringing out like an Adhara or a Vishuddha for a synchro. If you're trying to get like a Sword Soul card, you can use this to add them to your hand and then go from there. And then also from Grave, though you can't do this on the same turn. And each of these is it's a once per turn, and you can also only do one of these 2 effects per turn. The other thing you can do is from Grave you can banish it to add it, like search for a Tenyu. So versatile, good card. Most people run 2 from what I can tell. Vessel for the Dragon Cycle, not everyone runs this, but it's like decent. It lets you dump a worm, and then if you control face-up non-effect, you can search for a Tenyu with a different name from what you dumped. So also pretty nice way of kind of, it's like recovery / extension if you've got some stuff out to work with. Is there anything else sort of engine-wise? No, not really. Yeah, that's pretty much it. In the main, I also ran, here's my 2 Ashes. I'm still waiting on the 3rd one. Wish I had 3. Very nice card. Infinite Impermanence. Almost every deck you see is going to be running 3 Ash, 3 Imperm. If you don't know what these do, Ash basically just blocks a search, dump, or special summon from deck. Imperm is just, it's just a like negate on a monster. You don't have to chain it specifically to what they're doing. It's literally just you activate it and then negates their effects. You want to use it reactively, usually. If you use it proactively, like they'll play around it and it's not great. As I learned. Also it has this weird thing where if you set it first, which trap cards you normally have to set, but I'll get to that. If you set this first and then activate it, then it kind of like turns off the column, and if there's any spells and traps that happen to be in that column, they'll get negated. This doesn't come up much, but if you're against a back row heavy deck, then it can. But you're not gonna like, you're usually not gonna have them have like a continuous spell or something up. Then you set this, and then next turn you do this, and you turn off a continuous spell. Like again, it's just for the turn, so that doesn't really come up that much. So again, trap cards you normally have to set anyway, but Imperm actually has a clause that says you can activate it from hand if you control no cards, which is nice. And it's the only reason this card is actually like used. If not for that, I don't think people would run it. Not nearly as much anyway. I ran 3 of. Let's see, what order should I do these? Let's go with this. I ran 3 Droll and Lockbird, not because I think it's like, oh yeah, you want to run this in your main deck every time. It's just, I don't know. It's more of a side deck card. It's really just in here because I didn't have the, all the cards I wanted to have in here normally. So I had to kind of fill it out and change my build slightly. I forgot to explain what it does. Basically, it's similar to Ash. It's like, it doesn't stop the search, but you can respond to a search and then they can't do any more searches for the rest of the turn. So this Ashra is more generally useful, plus you can use it on specials and dumps. Droll is more like specific, but it's more powerful in that one specific case. And then we've got 3 Triple Tactics Talent. Basically, you use this if your opponent has hand trapped you, or if they've used like a monster effect to like negate or something like that on your turn. This is a very nice thing to use on the Crackback. You can do this, and then there's 3 different options you can do. 1, you can draw 2 cards. 2, you can steal a monster they have until the end phase, which you could use to OTK. I feel like you mostly want to use it as like, I don't want to deal with that effect that it has, or something like that. Or you can look at their hand and choose a card to basically return to the deck and shuffle it in, which this is very nice to do on turn 1 because they probably have, at least one good starter in there, so if you happen to open this and they hand trap you on the first turn, that's actually what I usually do instead of drawing 2 cards, is I'll try to rip from their hand and mess them up on their following turn, and then hopefully when it gets back to my turn, they'll be fucked. And then Caught by the Grave. This is at 1 at the moment. You can't have more than 1 in your deck. This is basically anti-hand trap, either on your turn or if you've set it, because of how quick plays work. Essentially, if they've hand trapped you, you can respond with this, and you can banish the hand trap and then negate its effect. So, for example, if I'm trying to search with Chixiao or something like that, and they hand trap me, I can Called by. Doesn't work on stuff that doesn't send to grave to do it though, and it has a few other niche uses too. Anyway, or not niche, but more specific to different matchups. Yeah, that's the main. Extra, I think I've basically gone over all of it, with a couple of exceptions I'll go into in a sec. So I explained Monk of the Tenyi. Here's Shaman of the Tenyi. This is mostly useful in one particular situation, but it can be used in certain others. You make this with 2 worms, so you can use a monk plus... you can use 2 monks, you can use a monk and a Moye that got wasted or something. You can use it between 2 Tenyis or something. But generally, I think most often you use it with a monk and plus maybe something else. The main thing that this does is that you can discard a card to special summon a worm from your grave. The problem is that for the rest of the turn, you can't use the effects of anything from your extra unless it's a Tenyi card, which the only other Tenyi in here other than Monk and this is Draco Berserker, which does give you some flexibility. Not flexibility, but I mean, obviously you're still limited, but this is at least one more option, so, but the thing is, that's only if you summoned it from the extra deck. So basically, the main use case for this is if your Chixiao has been destroyed, but you have a means of getting to Shaman, you can use this, discard something, which honestly isn't that big of a deal in this deck usually, because you'll often have a spare, Tenyi in hand that you can do this with. So you'll discard that, and then you can special the Chixiao back, and then it has its effects because you didn't special it from the extra deck. So that's a nice thing. I actually did use that to win in my first match, which is very nice. And then the only other card in here that I don't think we've talked... Oh, no, there's a couple more. Yazi. Here's actually a relevant point. You'll notice this is a 7. You might think I'm unable to make a 7, but the thing is, Taya, which... Shit, do I have it here? Never. Taya. Taya's effect, I forgot to mention, is when it's used as material... again, Moya lets you draw Longyun Burns your opponent. Taya lets you banish something, and... well, actually, no, shit. It lets you dump, doesn't it? Never mind, I remember. Yeah, that's right. You banish to make the token, and then you can dump. I actually think I forgot to dump whenever I did that. I always forget that effect. But anyway, no. The actual thing I wanted to say is the other reason that you run Emergence. Emergence, when it's banished, lets you level modulate. You can change the level of something you control by 1. So if you have, for example... Well, you can do it with the Taya. If you want to make Yazi... You can go into it like this. You can turn Taya into a 3, and then the token is 4, and then that makes 7. This one's a little bit... I feel like it's situational. I've heard people say that this is crazy. It's one of the best cards in the extra deck. It's untargetable, which is very nice. If your opponent keeps negating shit, that might be a good idea. Or destroying shit. And then once per turn, you can either target a Yang Zing you control and a card your opponent controls and destroy both of them. So targeted destruction, it's okay. And if this card's destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to your graveyard, which again, you can't chain this up with the other thing because you have to... Wait, no, you can. Oh, shit. Okay, yeah, never mind. I see why this is... I need to read my own fucking cards. You can destroy this and pop one of your opponent's things, and then special summon a worm from your deck in defense. Okay, I see now. I see the benefit here. So you do that, and then you keep popping off from there. Okay, fair enough. I should say Emergence is also usable to, you can also increase its level to make a 9. And there's another way of making a 9, which is you use the Baxia to bring back Adhara, and then that's 8 plus 1 to make a 9. I don't have a 9, and that's because I'm waiting on it. There's a card called Chao Fang, Phantom of the Yangzing, which you would usually do that with, and that card's pretty good. I don't remember what it does offhand, but I don't have it yet, so I can't use it, unfortunately. In any case. So there you go. That's most of it. The only other... There's actually a couple more here. Sorry. here we go. Adamancipator Risen Dragite. This is a card that's part of a different archetype called Adamancipator. It's all about like excavating shit and then synchroing. This has an effect to do with Adamancipators that doesn't do anything in this deck. The main reason you do this is that you can... is it once per turn? Yeah. Essentially once per turn, if your opponent activates a spell trap and you have a Watering Grave, which you probably will because you have like Moye, then you can negate it and destroy it. So if your opponent's playing something back row heavy, sometimes this is a nice thing to go into. And it's 3,000, which is, nothing to sneeze at. The last card in here is just the Typhon that I pulled the other day. If you want to know more about what that does, see that video or just look it up. I just put it in here because I needed a 15th slot, because normally I would put Chaofeng there, but I don't have it. So yeah, that's basically the deck. I guess I could go over the side as well. I ran 3D Shifter because it's just kind of generally good. There's a lot of decks that do stuff with the graveyard. Harpy's Feather Duster, Cosmic Cyclone, Anti-Spell Fragrance. This is all back row hate. I noticed when I went to go scope out the locals that the last time I went, there were like 4 people playing Runic Stun. Well, Runic in general. One person was on Runic Stun, the others were on various Runic combinations, which I just didn't want to have to deal with it. And now, granted, they don't usually like keep them out; they're like quick plays, but you can get rid of the Fountain with Cyclone. I think Feather Duster works on field spells. Not sure. Anti-Spell Fragrance is nice. It's you probably want to not have it up when you like need to make use of Emergence or something, but it is what it is. D-Barrier is essentially hate against, like, it's targeted against other, like, extra deck types. So, this is a Synchro deck. I basically only ever make Synchros and sometimes Links. If your opponent is on, like, Fusion spam, like, for example, Tyr uses a lot of Fusions. Most decks do have multiple extra deck types for what it's worth, but most of them will usually focus on one at least. So if they've got like Fusion spam, Ixies spam, Link spam, anything like that, you can hit a D-Barrier and you can say, no more Fusions, no more Ixies. If you're up against another Synchro deck though, you're kind of shit out of luck because it locks you too, and you don't want to do that. So don't side that if you're against another Synchro deck. And then, let's see. And then we've also got 3 evenly matched. Let's see. I think I actually did construct this side deck myself. I don't think I looked at anybody's specifics one. I just kind of looked at the various different staples I had, and I'm like, I think these are the ones I'll take. Evenly matched is nice to have on your first turn, but you can also use it in other cases. Essentially, what you would do is, oh no, sorry, you do this if you're going second. So your opponent makes a board. This is an incredible board breaker, because at the end of battle, so you would skip straight to battle for this, that's the one downside. If you don't think you can get over their board any other way, you can evenly match them, and then essentially they have to banish cards such that they control the same number you do, and that doesn't count evenly matched, so they essentially, if you have an empty board, and you can activate this from hand if you have an empty board, so that's kind of the intent, is you go to battle, you activate this, they have to banish their whole field. Yeah, you do that. I did that once to pretty good effect, I think it was in my second match. And then finally I got 2 Lightning Storm. This is, it's going to either be a Harpy's Feather Duster, or it can be, what do you call it, a Raigeki. The catch is you have to have no cards on field, so you'd only side this going second, generally. So yeah, that's basically it. Did I explain what D-Shifter does? No, I didn't. D-Shifter, you discard it if you have no cards in grave, and then until the next end phase, until the end of the next turn, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So if they use a lot of graveyard effects, it's going to get banished instead, and then this can fuck you over, and I'm going to talk about that for my own game. You have to be careful with it. You can't just shotgun it in every case. You got to look at your hand. But yeah, that's my side. So I don't think my deck was built that badly, considering I am missing a couple of pieces. The only thing I'm trying to think, I explained Chaofeng. At least, I mean, I don't remember what Chaofeng does, but I explained that I'm missing it. I need my 3rd Ash and my 3rd Emergence. The only other card I'm missing is a card called Sword Soul Sacred Summit, and not everyone even runs that anyway. It has the same effect, the same, like, banishment effect as Emergence, where you can level modulate with it, which is fine, I don't really care about that. The main thing you do with it is it's essentially a monster reborn for a Sword Soul, and so what's a good thing to do, in certain circumstances, which comes up more often than you think, just because of the number of different starters in here, is if you've Moyed and you've grabbed Longyun, if you have Taya in hand, you can pitch Taya with Longyun, make whatever that is, and then Sacred Summit, which you only run once, you'd probably be searching it. if you have Sacred Summit, you can actually bring back the Tire, immediately banish like the Longyun or something, and then make a third Synchro. So that's a nice thing to do. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it. So the locals, I went X3, which if you don't know what that means that I lost 3 times. The X is essentially saying the number of wins doesn't matter, because often that's how the bracketing works. Often people will just care how many times you lost before you went out. So ours is a 4-round local, so I won once and lost 3 times. This could have been an X2 if I didn't misplay, and there was one match that hurt more than the others, and I'll get to that. Game 1, I made clear to my opponent, who I hadn't met before. He hadn't been at the other locals that, particular tournaments I'd watched. It was this dude on Telement, and I mentioned this was my first locals. I was a little bit nervous, but he didn't have to I'd please don't take it easy on me or anything. He's like, oh no, okay, I'll. And he was very, very nice. Was very good about explaining his cards to me as well. And there's just a lot of people, even if they were nice and they were fine. This guy made very clear to be like, this lets me do this. He didn't slow play. He didn't talk down to me with it, but he was like, I'm going to do this, and just, I noticed people, and I'm guilty of this too, people tend to kind of just be like, okay, effect, reveal Longyun, token, sync, and I can usually follow it, but I needed to read a lot of cards today, because I'm not really familiar with, there's many cards I just simply haven't read before, even if I have a general idea of what the strategy does, because this game is very intricate, and you need to be able to identify the right time to fire off certain interruptions and stuff like that. This first guy was very, very nice. He was on Telements. I took game 1. I don't remember exactly what happened. I think I won the die roll and I went first. And so I just kind of made a normal board, like Chi-Shao and Baron or something. He started to make something. I interrupted well. I think he actually might have broken my board a little bit, and then I came back and I was able to do a play with Shaman, I think it was. I think it was either 10-3 or 5 that I was able to then go for lethal from there. Longyun had obviously burned him, so he was down to 6,800, and I think I was able to get exactly 68 on board. It was something like Chi-Shao, Baron... No, don't remember. Never mind. I remember there was definitely a point where I used the Shaman to bring back my Chi-Shao, though. That might have been early. No, it was definitely the game I won, because then he proceeded to win games 2 and 3. Second game, this is a little bit surprising for me. I hadn't seen people do this before. I sided for going second because he lost, so he would get the choice. So I sided assuming I was going to go second, he would pick first. He asked me to go first. So I had several cards in there that I'm like, shit, these are going second cards. It didn't actually trip me out too much, though. I was able to basically make a fine board turn 1 again. This time he just kind of wore me down and was able to take it. I think there was a point where it's very clear I was going to lose, and I said, let's go game 3. By the time, even though our first game was very quick, I actually won relatively quickly. I guess it must have been turn 3. So I thought we had plenty of time. As soon as it hit round 3, the person running the OTS called out 4 minutes, and I'm like, oh, fuck. But I'm like, I mean, that's okay, because obviously I lost game 2, so I had the chance, do I want to go first or second? So I picked first, so I went first all 3 games. And I'm like, if I can burn with Longyun, that's a nice time card. And I'm like, here's how I do, here's how I play that. I'm trying to think, was this the one where I didn't do that? I think I didn't shotgun the burn. I think it didn't end up mattering because he had an imperm or something. I definitely misplayed a little bit. The point is, he was able to burn me down a little bit more. Time was called. Shook hands. That was the first loss. I wasn't too broken up about that one, honestly. The guy was very nice. I was able to win at least 1 game. I didn't get 2-0'd. I think I played basically as well as I could have under the conditions. Got thrown off a little bit by being asked to go first game 2 after I'd already sided for going second. By the way, sliding is stressful as fuck, because you have to, I'm usually not thinking about my siding patterns while I'm against them. I'll have a general idea, but, I'm not looking through my side deck thinking which exact cards am I going to swap over. And you're always having to take something out. And, depending on how many things you want to side back in, it can be tricky. One thing I actually remembered I did was, which is a lesson I can take away from this, was I shotgunned D-Barrier on his turn, because I went first, set up my thing. I D-Barried him for Fusion. And after the game, he was like, that's fine, that did throw me off a bit, but what would have been better, and somebody else backed him up on this, he's like, it probably would have been better to wait until I'd started to commit into a line or a play that would give me a fusion, and then D-Barrier, because then I'm like, I've wasted resources on a line I can't do and I have to like correct rather than playing around it. And so that would have been, that would trip me up a bit more. I think he said, I think we determined he probably would have won anyway, but it's fine. So that's lesson 1. Don't shotgun things, because information is important. It's a very important resource, almost as important as the cards itself in a lot of cases. That's one of the beautiful things about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that set card, it could literally be anything. And because it could be anything, that is more powerful than it being something specific that they know what they need to do with. Because it could have been D-Barrier, so maybe they don't want to go for the fusion play. But what if it's something else instead? What if it's a card that, would punish them for playing in a different way? Maybe, I can't think of anything specific, but you get the idea. Like, because there's many different things it could be, they can't comfortably be like, I know the most optimal play at this time. Whereas, because I shotgunned the D-Barrier, he was like, okay, I can't go into my fusion, I'll go into my Ixies, and I know what I'm doing from here, and he didn't have to worry as much. So that's the first lesson to take away from that. Second lesson is be aware of time. I was not tracking the time on my app because he was keeping track of life points with a pen and paper, which is perfectly fine, that's perfectly allowed, but it meant that I didn't have the timer visible to me, and so I didn't realize that by the time we hit game 3 it was only 4 minutes left, which, if I had known that, I might have played a little faster. But that can kind of be a downside to that, as I'll explore later. Game 2, I was up against this dude on Lyrilusk Tri-Brigade, and essentially Lyrilusks are like these level 1 winged beasts that tend to Ixies a lot. Tri-Brigade is kind of link spammy. You discard a lot of beast, wing beast, beast warriors. That's why it's called Tri-Brigade, because it's like the 3 different types there to do with beasts. And then you can often, with some of them, have like effects that let you link off using stuff in the grave by banishing them. And so I actually 2-0'd this guy, which was surprising to me. Game 1, I think I won the die roll, and I made a nice board, and I was able to just kind of interrupt it enough that I think he conceded at one point. Game 2, a very similar thing happened. Like, he was telling me that his drolls kept getting interrupted with, like, I'm trying to remember what droll usually does. Yeah, it's you pitch it and then you like stop more searches. Oh, never mind, I'm stupid. I said earlier that droll, it like the first search is allowed through, but that's not true, because if you change roll, then that search then gets negated. So yeah, never mind. It is similar. Yeah, you don't let the first one through. Point is, though, he was saying that it was either through call by and or something else. Like, this is only round 2, so I guess this must have been his match 1. Oh, sorry, yeah. Rounds. I'm getting rounds, matches, and games mixed up here. But anyway, yeah, in his round 1 match, I think both games somebody had messed with his draw with like a called by and then something else. And this game, I basically did the same thing again. I called by him twice, and it was just, I felt bad for him, because afterwards he was saying like, oh, I bricked, I couldn't do anything. So I don't know if I really earned that one that much, but we take those. These things happen in Yu-Gi-Oh! So that was pretty nice. It was I'm glad I got, at least one win under my belt. I would have been, happy just getting some games here and there, depending. But it was nice to not go just completely X4 and just, so that brings us to game 3. Game 3 is very regretful. Game 4 to an extent as well, but I think that was kind of just a knock-on effect from game 3. So here's what happened in game 3, is I get put up against a kid playing Trap Tricks. And I believe this kid has only been on this deck for like a couple of weeks now, because when I first went to go like watch the locals, he had only recently switched onto it because somebody recommended it to him because they said it seemed like his kind of deck. And to his credit, he did play the deck very well. He knew the lines, he knew what he was doing. I can't say that he didn't win fairly, exactly. There was one thing that was kind of, there was one kind of aspect though that definitely was a factor in making it not go quite how I wanted. The problem is, for this game, I did have the timer visible on my phone. But as I discovered from talking to him afterwards, he was reading the time the wrong way around. The time on the phone, on the app, counts up from 0 minutes. And so there was, I think he said it was when it was at 8 minutes. So we were 8 minutes into the round. he looked at that, he saw 8 minutes, and he thought we had 8 minutes left. I guess I knew, like, we're still early in the round. There's no way, you know, we're that late in it. But it was at that point, I'm still relatively new. I'm thinking through my lines. Also, Trap Tricks and any trap deck is a fucking bitch to play against because you have to constantly be wary of, like, what are they going to be able to do here? They play on your turn. That's what trap decks do. And so, you know, unlike other games where it was kind of like, I built my board, I would maybe get ashed or, like, drawled a couple of times. You know, that's just like a single card. This is like, I bring a thing, and they're like, I chain this, and then that lets this monster let me set a different thing, and then I can pop your thing. And I'm like, okay, there's 3 cards here I need to read. And I'm like, what does this do? Okay, what does this do? And so then I have to process all that information and think, how do I adjust my play from here? Can I respond for one thing? If not, where do I go from here? Okay, my shit just got popped. Fuck. Meanwhile, this kid... This kid's like, can we speed up pace of play, please? And I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking, like, why the rush? We're early in the round, but I guess he read it the wrong way around, and so he thought we were, like, near the end, and he needed to hurry up. And here's the problem. Game 1, I won. I was fine. I was able to play through it. We went to Game 2. I sided for going second. He made me go second. Fine. He's a trap deck. He wants to go first. That makes sense to me. I sided for going second. That was all fine, and... he builds this board, I tried to play, and he just has too many things on board to interrupt me. And I basically have no more plays, and I say, let's go to game 3. It was very quick. I think the time said 20 or 25 minutes, so we had 20 to 25 minutes left, because the rounds are 45 minutes. And so I'm sitting here thinking, this is fine, I'm going first, I can probably do what I did game 1, make a pretty good board, run him over. But I think 2 more times during, like, game 3, he kept asking me, like, can you hurry up, please? And I'm like, okay. And so his lesson number 3 is, don't let people... If you think, you know, I've got plenty of time here, I don't need to rush, don't let people rush you. Like, there is an extent to which you don't want to be, like, slow playing, right? You don't want to be just making them wait for forever for your plays. I don't think I was waiting that much. I think it was maybe just a smidge shocky. I don't want to... actually, like, accuse him of this, but he seemed like a little bit of a hot ass at times, and I probably should have stood up for myself a bit more and been like, no, we're fine, look, we got 20 minutes. And honestly, if I pointed out that we had 20 minutes left, he might have just laid off and been like, oh, okay, sorry, I read it wrong. So don't be afraid to speak up. Don't just let people be like, hurry up, and you're like, okay. But let's see. And then the problem was, that would have been fine. I know my lines generally. The problem is I kept misplaying because of my rushing. So the one that there's 2 examples that I really remember. One was I had a Chixiao and a Draco Berserker, and he used some kind of monster effect. Now, what I should have done is use Chixiao's effect to negate. But because I had just put Draco Berserker out, and he had read the card because he had never seen it before, and he's like, what does this do? And somebody else was like, oh, it lets you, like, banish if you activate a monster effect. That was, like, in my short-term memory or something. And so he uses a monster effect. I go, Draco Berserker. And pretty much immediately, like 2 seconds later, I'm like, oh, fuck, I shouldn't have done that. I should have Chixiao. And, again, this is a competitive setting, so there's nothing wrong with the kid doing this, but he was like, no, you missed the chance. You did that. And I'm like, okay, fine. And it's weird, though, because, like... several other people were like, oh, it's your first time, you know, we don't have to go that fast. They were pretty relaxed. They were like, you know, there were a couple times where I'm like, I think I'm going to do this. No, actually, I won't. I'll do this. And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. This kid, if I ever did that, he was like, no, you said you did that. Which, again, competitive setting, not unreasonable, but made me a little upset. And the other instance was he had some kind of effect that I'd never seen before. He brought out like I know what Rafflesia does, I know what Sarah does. He had some other Ixies that's like you can banish, or maybe it was one of his spells or something, that was like you can banish your opponent's monster, and then in the they can special summon a monster they have banished. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I get my banished thing back eventually, right? And so he banishes the thing. I'm like, that's totally fine. And this is when the kid was on like 1800 left in like life points, and I'm at 8k. I'm sitting pretty. And also we had like 5 minutes left, and I'm like, if we actually were that close to time, I'm way ahead on life points. I have this kid. Like, I'm winning here. But because we were rushing, we actually got many turns in, and there were several back and forth. There was one turn where I had nothing but Ash in my hand. I set the Ash, and I'm like, okay, go. And at this point, I'm like, by the way, when does my thing come back? And he's like, oh no, you missed the chance. It was in your standby phase. You could have done it. I'm like, it's optional? What? Why does your card have an optional effect for me? What are you... That was fucking annoying. Because he didn't tell me. Like, I did read the card, but I just saw it said, like, it comes back. And I didn't know it was in my standby phase, I can bring it back. And he didn't remind me or anything. He was perfectly content to let me forget the effect. Which, fine, it gave him the win. But, like, man, was I mad. And essentially that cost me. There were, like, 3 different opportunities where I absolutely had lethal on this guy. And I just didn't bring out the right thing. There was another chance where I think I could have used like some effects to sync something and then go from there, and I just didn't. I just kept misplaying because I'm wary that if I think for like 2 seconds longer, this kid's gonna get mad and tell me to hurry up. So there you go. That's lesson 3. You know, don't misplay. I mean, I don't know how to tell you not to misplay, but like, I guess it goes hand in hand with the other thing, right? Is you need reasonable time to think through your plays and to figure out what you're doing. So don't let people essentially bully you into making your decisions like that. Like, this kid obviously knew his deck better than me, so, you know, fine. He was making his plays very quick. Like, he was pretty much like, use this, chain this, pop this. He knew his deck back to front. I kind of know this deck, but I've been, you know, I haven't done that much dueling book with it recently. I've mostly been on Master Duel with Mikanko. So yeah, and Game 4, there's not really much to talk about. I was up against this guy on TG, Tech Janus, which is not a great deck to my understanding. I mean, he won against me, so obviously it can do something. That was another deck where I didn't know what any of the cards did. It's just synchro spam essentially, and none of the effects were like that oppressive. Game 1, I don't really remember what happened. I think he interrupted me, and I kind of made a substandard board. He broke it relatively easily, or like ran me over with like a 3k of my Chi Shao's 28, and I just couldn't do anything from there. Game 2, I kind of bricked. I'm trying to think exactly what I had in hand. It was something like, it was all 3 of my main Tenyis. So it was like the Adhara, the Ashuna, the Vishuddha, like a triple tack, and a D-shifter, importantly, that I'd sided in. And here's lesson number 4. Don't shotgun this shit. Like, actually think about your turn. The problem was, I'd sided this in. I'm like, this will be real good, because he's got a lot of effects that, like, let him revive from grave, or, like, pitch to do something. I'm like, D-shifter will be great here. It'll really shut him down. But what happened was, I drew this along with kind of a bricky hand. And I'm like, D-shifter immediately. Because D-shifter, you have to have an empty graveyard. You can't have really done anything else that discards cards in order to use it. And so I'm saying that, and the thought did cross. I'm like, if I D-shifter, I won't be able to use Ashuna's effects from like grave or anything. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably fine, because then I won't be able to D-shifter. I got a D-shifter, so I D-shifter, and by the time I've done this, it's been a few seconds, and I'm like, I can't take this back. That was absolutely the wrong play, and it's literally cost me the game. Turn 1, like, move 0, move number 1. Because what I should have done is Ashuna, Monk, special something. Ashuna, Monk, special the other thing, like Vishuddha or something. Vishuna effect, bring out Adhara, sync for Chi Shao, search Long Yun, pitch Adhara, do that. Like, I wouldn't have been able to D-shifter. I should have, like, that's fine. Like, D-shifter was in here in case... It was good against his deck, don't get me wrong. It was not good with the specific hand I had. So, just because you've... And again, this sounds obvious, but this is a hard lesson I've had to learn, is if you side something in, don't always assume, even just generally, if there's a certain card that you like really wanted to see and you're like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted, still think through your play. Still think about the consequences that's going to come from doing it. Because that was a very, very stupid move on my part, and I'm immediately like, can I play around this? Oh shit, not really. I'm fucked. Because then he took his turn. I think I tried to do something. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll still make a play. Ashuna, Monk, Vishuddha, Shaman, and then I looked at Shaman. I'm like, why did I make Shaman? It doesn't do anything in this situation. I'm just like, oh, I can make big, a higher link. That's what I can do. No, don't do that. I'm actually trying to think. Could I have still done something? I don't think so. I think I was still fucked, which kind of sucks. But hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Those are the lessons I learned. And hopefully they'll carry me through into a better result next time. I'll still be on Sword Soul. Hopefully some more of my cards will come in as well in the next week. And eventually I will build something else. I'm not sure I'll make a vlog next week for that, but because unless I have like more stories to tell, I guess, about like, you know, who I went up against. But I'm going to be piloting the same deck, so if I do, it'll be a shorter video. So the last thing to do is to open up the participation pack I got. This comes with 3 cards from a set that is basically custom specifically for these. There's a lot of good cards in there, but there's also a lot of kind of just, you know, pack filler, essentially. I should be able to get something decent. And then there's also a couple other things I want to showcase from today when I'm on my mat, so let me shift over to that camera angle. Okay, let's open this pack. So again, 3 cards, and there is, I believe, exactly 1 card in here that I would be very happy to see, because it's decently expensive, I think. Anything else would, you know, I guess be trade fodder potentially, but I think Pack 23 came out like 3 days ago, and they haven't switched over the locals yet, so probably everybody's like pulled everything they want from here, if they're like a regular, but maybe not, we'll see. I assume the back card is the holo, so let's see. Archfiend Eccentric, some kind of pendulum card. I didn't know there was a pendulum Archfiend archetype. Power Tool Mecha Dragon. I don't think I've heard of this one. I've heard of Power Tool Dragon, but sure. And the third one, which could be, I'll say now, the thing I'm looking for. Actually, I'll talk about it if I don't get it. No. Horn of Oliphant. What does this do? Oh, this is an Infernoble card, huh? Or just Noble Knights in general. Let's see. Banish and equip, destroy a card in the field. Or destroy a Roland you control, then special summon a defense position up to 3 fire warriors from the deck whose total levels equal 9, their effects are negated. Also until the end of your next turn after this effect you cannot resolve. Special summon monsters except warrior monsters. Yeah, no. It's very much a Infernoble card, I suppose. You could use the first thing, I guess, but no. I was gonna say you could use the first thing in Mikanko actually runs Roland, and also a couple other Infernoble cards. Speaking of which, I actually traded today. Now, it's a shame that I didn't make my, like, collection showcase video before this, because there was something in there that I was kind of wanting to show that I have, in fact, traded away now. And so you're never going to get to see that, which is a kind of a shame. But I am happy with the stuff I got out of it. Let's see, I traded away... Actually, it was the, it was one of the things I pulled from, Agov. What was it? Oh yeah, it was the Snake Eye Ash. I guess he had some of the other Snake Eyes and wanted that one. He also wanted the Horus cards I pulled, but I said, no, I'm not giving those away. And then there was also one of my copies of Earthbound Immortal Wiracocha Raska. That one's kind of a weird thing. My tin is Wiracocha Raska, like, themed. And I got, like, there was a card that came with it. Like, it was like a promo card or something. By the way, here's a preview of the garbage collection here, which I might show in a future video if people are interested. But no, yeah, and I actually had a second copy because something like maybe like 8-9 years ago, I was at a convention and there were some Yu-Gi-Oh vendors, and I got a second one for some reason because I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'll make a Wiracocha Raska deck. I don't know what I was thinking, but he was interested in getting one, and I'm like, hey, I have 2, why not? I don't know if it was the one that I got from the vendor or if it was my original one that I gave him. Not actually sure. They were both basically the same. Anyway, so, and then the third one I traded was an ultimate rare Koa Kimeru Golungulate, or Gulungulate. It's the only ultimate I've ever pulled in anything. I happened to get it in a pack of, like, Ancient Prophecy, I think. As a kid, I just randomly got, like, a few packs. Anyway, it's not worth fucking anything, even though it's an ultimate rare, but... So, the three things I got are, let's see, what's the order I should talk about these? Well, we mentioned the Infernoble Knights. Here's Renaud, or Renaud, I don't know how you say it. If you control Fire Warrior, you can special this card from your hand, and if you do that, then it's a tuner. Also, if you special summon this card in general, you can add an Equip or a Fire Warrior from grave to hand. So, I don't know what this does for Infernoble. This is good as part of a going first sort of combo Mikanko line, where you essentially... I'm trying to think the order here. You would... that's right. You usually use a Neospace Connector, bring out Aqua Dolphin, make Isolde, which, by the way, is one of the other cards I got. Use Isolde's effect on summon to add Roland, which doesn't do anything immediately. It's either discard fodder, or you can use it later as like a quick effect equip to get some effects off. I'm not going to explain Mikanko in detail, but then you dump an equip spell to special Renaud. Then you, actually, specifically, you would usually do Mikanko Water Arabesque. Then Renaud's effect lets you add that to hand. You attach Water Arabesque to Renaud, use its effect to special this girl, Hare the Sword Mikanko, and bounce this back to hand, so now you got Hare. Then you use this effect because you control a Fire Warrior to special this out. It becomes a tuner. 1+3 is 4. You make this card called Herald of the Arclight. Also, by the way, when you match Water Arabesque to Hare, you get to search a Mikanko equip, so you search Fire Dance, then you make Herald, and then you use Fire Dance to bring Hare back, and then you got 1, 2, 3, 4 link rating. Then you make Apo. When Herald's sent to grave, you search Ohime, Ohime being this one. And then Ohime you can use to search another Mikanko, and then you discard... usually you'll grab a Mikanko Ceremony, which is the thing that lets you cheat her out, and then you discard like an Equip or like another Mikanko card, you play that, Ohime, get Ceremony engraved, Ceremony effect, banished to dump another Mikanko card, maybe be like Maya Washidori. Use that to special out like Hare or another Mikanko or something, and then you got those two on field, and you got the Apo, and it's like a whole thing. And then finally, this card, Geonator Transversa. This thing I do not use yet in any Mikanko builds on like Master Duel or anything, but this is part of a very funny line that people figured out for essentially creating a card called number 30 Acid Golem of Destruction, and then you can use this thing's effect to give it to your opponent as long as you can swap it with something they have. That's what I wanted the Gen and Ken for, because you can use those to special each other to your opponent's field. And so you put that in the middle, you swap this, you put Acid Golem on their field, and then they can't special summon, and they get burned every turn, unless they detach a material. And it's a big body you can run into with Mikankos, because their whole deal is they have like 0 attack and defense, and your opponent takes the battle damage, so you run in and they take the damage, and it's very, very funny if you can get it off. So I'm looking to build that, and that's why I got these 3 cards. Basically, I came in, somebody was interested in trading, looked through my stuff, there actually was some stuff they were interested in, so we made a trade for these 3, and very happy to have these. These are some key pieces I was going to have to, well, especially these 2. This one, like I said, it's not in my current build, but might make use of it. I might build that version of it too, see how it goes. Definitely these 2 I use though. And these are just generally good cards. Like, Isolde is crazy good. I think at one time it was limited or maybe even banned. I'm not sure. And Renaud is a good part of the strategy, so... Anyway, like I said, kind of a disappointing result from my actual performance this week, but hey, lessons learned. Next time maybe I'll do better, and I'll see you guys then. Unless you want me to show off my collection, in which case I guess I'll figure out a good time to do that. So, bye!